All right, I'm recording. Good. All right, here we go. So lesson 30, using factoring to change from standard form to intercept form. So our learning goals are to use factoring to change the parabola from standard form, which looks like this. Hopefully that's up there too, standard form, which looks like that, to intercept form, which looks like this. So it has the A out front, and then it's factored. The rest of it's factored. Okay? And R1 and R2 are the x-intercepts. Remember that from last week or 2 weeks ago? All right. And then we had our formula of how to, I'll write that on the chalkboard here. So we had our intercept form, R1 and R2 are the x-intercepts. And H is R1 plus R2 divided by 2. And K is A times H minus R1 times H minus R2. So those are the big things we added on for graphing last week. Okay? And that's what today is. That's all today is. We're consolidating how to graph a parabola in intercept form by calculating its vertex and using the step pattern. So rewrite each parabola in intercept form, determine the vertex of the parabola, make a sketch of the parabola, and write it in vertex form as well. So we're starting off with standard form. So in order to change from standard form to intercept form, you factor. Okay? So you got your factoring flow chart out. And what does it say to do first at the very top? Check for common factors. Is there common factors among those two terms? X, here was the X, okay? So if you common factor X out, what's going to go inside the bracket? So remember, there was two ways to think about it. One way was to take x squared and divide by x, the divide way. X squared divided by x is x. Negative 4x divided by x is negative 4. Okay? And the other way was, what do I multiply x by to get x squared? X. What do I multiply x by to get negative 4x? Negative 4. Okay? Those are your two ways to think about it, but that's factored form. Okay? This is called factored form. Then we want to exaggerate it into this intercept form. So in our case, we don't really need to write the 1 in. I think we're pretty good with it, knowing that if there's no number up front, it's a 1. But we can exaggerate that x to make it x minus 0, so that the intercept pops out at us when we're looking at it. So this x we rewrote as x minus 0. You don't need to do that. If you just know if there's a plain x there that the intercept's 0, that's fine. But this is helpful to show what the x-intercepts are. So at this point, you've got it into intercept form now, which means you should be able to look at it and list the x-intercepts. You should be able to say R1 equals and R2 equals. So remember, there's a minus in the formula. It follows that pattern, x minus the x-intercept. X minus the x-intercept. So one of the x-intercepts is 0. X minus the other x-intercept, x minus 4, so the other one's 4. So then you should be able to put them on your graph. 0 is one x-intercept, 4 is your other one. Okay? So your two x-intercepts. Now you can calculate your vertex using the two formulas. Okay? So H is R1 plus R2 divided by 2. So you add the x-intercepts together and divide by 2, which gives you the middle of them. Okay? Which we know is 2 if we look at the graph, but we're just proving it here. So H being 2 means that we know the axis of symmetry is going to be along here. Okay, our vertex is going to be along there somewhere, along x equals 2. Okay, which is halfway between the x-intercepts, which makes total sense. Okay, now we want to know the y value for the vertex. Okay, so far we know the vertex is 2 something. We want to get the number that goes there. So we're going to use our second formula. So k is, we sub in, we replace y with k. We replace x with our h value. And then calculate it. And we get -4. So now we have our vertex to be 2, -4, right here. Different color. And then our step number, we can see it in the standard form was a 1. In the intercept form was a 1. A is 1, means up, 1, 3, 5. So from here, over 1 up 1. Over 1 up 3. Oh, that landed on our intercept, so that's good. Over 1 up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't have room for 7, but we have enough to draw in our parabola. Okay. And then we have to write it in vertex form. So remember, the general formula for vertex form looks like this. And then we're just going to sub in all the things we figured out. That's h, that's k. A was 1, so we don't really need to write the 1 there. X minus h was 2 squared. K is -4. So this is vertex form. So right now in that question, you have somewhere in that question standard form. That's what we started with. Then we put it into intercept form, standard, intercept, and then at the end we put it into vertex form. That's all 3 forms, okay? So we've all got all 3 forms written there somewhere. All right, our next question. So to go from standard to intercept, we factor. So we're going to check for common factors first, and whenever there's a leading negative, there's for sure a common factor. So negative's going to be in common. Is anything else in common? 2 goes into 6. Is there an x in both of them? Yes, so smaller exponent is plain x. And then see if you can figure out what would go in the next bracket. Common factor -2x out of both terms. So you divide -2x squared by -2x, you get x. If you divide -6x divided by -2x, you get +3. Okay? So that's called factored form. But we want to put it into intercept form, which looks like this. So we just have to exaggerate this a bit, keep the -2 by itself, put this first x into a bracket with a -0, and keep the second one, and now it matches that intercept form. Once you've got it in intercept form, you should be able to look at it and tell what R1 and R2 are. What are the 2 x-intercepts? Be careful about the signs, because remember there's negatives in the Hey, who thinks they know R1 and R2? Yes. 0 and?
3.
Close. -3. Why is it -3? Right. So to have this positive here, it would have to be that, x minus -3, and that's why you see x plus 3. Okay, everybody remember that from a week ago? So that's your intercept. So put them on your graph, 0 and -3. Then you're going to use the formula h equals r1 plus r2 over 2. So that's 0 plus -3 divided by 2 is going to be -1.5. Which means that at -1.5, like in the middle of this column here, your vertex is going to be somewhere along there. Okay? So that's my h. To get my k, I substitute h into this intercept formula. So k is going to be -2. That's where I got the -2. Bracket. That's where I got the bracket. Replace x with -1.5 minus 0. Replace x with -1.5 plus 3. Then it's all about calculating. So calculate the value inside each of the brackets. And use your calculator for your mental math and multiply those 3 together. And you get positive 4.5, which means your vertex is hk, so your vertex is going to be at -1.5, positive 4.5. So -1.5, positive 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So right in the middle of that square there is your vertex. And then you got your step number, -2. So if a is -2, that means you're going down 2, 6, and 10. So from your vertex, you're going to go over 1, which puts you into the middle of this square, and down 2, so it puts you right in the middle of that one. Okay? And then over 1 and down 2, so you're right in the middle of that one. Hi. Hi, Mr. Yes. Yes. Now we're going to go over 1 and down 6. So in the middle again of the square, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there. And then over 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're in the middle of that one. And it works out because you can see that on your way from the 2 glue points, you're going to pass through those green ones smoothly. Okay? You know you've done something wrong if your intercepts are on the outside, like they're further apart than those blue dots are. It should look like you just smoothly go through them. So let's see. Yeah. Okay, and then you have to write it in vertex form. So vertex form has this general format. This is vertex. We're a bit rusty. So the A value is -2. H was -1.5, so I'd have x minus -1.5 squared. And K was positive 4.5. And then the only issue is I wouldn't leave it as minus -1.5, I'd change it to plus 1.5. Okay? All right, here we've got one with a half. So you have to put a little star beside this one. So we don't think of a half as going into things, but actually a half can go into all integers evenly, okay? Because how many times does a half go into 1? Twice. Everyone see that in your head? Half goes into 1 twice. So it goes into 2 4 times. So it goes into 3 6 times. So it can be our common. Plus it's an A. It's our A value, and we want our A out front anyways in intercept form. Okay, so anytime you start with a half, you're going to factor that out. Okay. So we've got y equals a half, but x is also common. So there's only 2 terms, and they both have an x. So if you do the divide way, half divided by half is 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. X squared divided by x is x. And then -3 divided by half. So you can either do it on your calculator, which a lot of people were doing last week. -3 divided by 0.5 gives you -6, okay? Or if you want to use the rule for multiplying it, you multiply by the reciprocal, and you'll get -6 over 1, which is -6. Okay? And then x divided by x is 1. So that would be our factored form. So we common factored there to get that. Now we want to exaggerate it so it looks like intercept form with the 2 brackets instead of just 1 bracket. So x becomes x minus 0. And now we put it in intercept form. So now you should be able to read off what the 2x intercepts are. So R1 is 0, and R2 is 6. And then I'm going to put those on my graph. 0 and 6. And then I'm going to find h, my vertex. So h is R1 plus R2 divided by 2. Which is 0 plus 6 divided by 2, which is 3. It should make sense to everybody. So we know our vertex is going to be somewhere along there. To get the k value that goes with it, you're going to substitute in here. So it's going to be a half times 3 minus 0 times 3 minus 6. Which is going to give us negative 4.5. Which means our vertex is going to be at 3, negative 4.5. So 1, 2, 3, negative 1, 2, 3, 4.5 is halfway there. And then we have to look for our step number, which is a half. So that means we're going to be going up a half, or 0.5, 1.5, 2.5. When a is a half. So then from here, we're going to go over 1. So that's here, and then up a half. since we started at the halfway there, a half puts us on a corner. And then over 1 up 1.5. And then over 1 up 1, 2.5, so we land right on the intercepts, which is encouraging. And then we still have room, so it'll be over 1 up 1, 2, 3.5. And then we still have room, so it'd be over 1 up 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And then we can draw in our parabola. And that's H and K. We can sub it into vertex form. So it's going to be y equals half x minus 3 squared minus 4.5. So all those first three examples, the type of factoring we used was common factoring, okay? And then we exaggerated it to look like intercept form by taking plain x and making it x minus 0, okay? The next one, if we check for a common factor amongst all three terms, there isn't one, okay? There's no leading negative. So I'm back onto my flowchart. There is no common factor, so I'm counting the terms. There's 3. What type of trinomial is this? Yeah, simple. There's a 1 in front. Okay, so it's a simple trinomial, which means that it's going to factor like that. And we need two numbers that multiply to positive 3, but add to negative 4. So to multiply to a positive but add to a negative, they both have to be negative. Okay? So negative 1 and negative 3, yay, they work. And if I just remember there's a 1 out front of there, this is an intercept form already, right? So remember, intercept form looks like this. It's got subtracts or minus signs in the formula. So you should be able to look at that and pick out your two x-intercepts. Now that it's factored. So there's minus sign in the first bracket, so R1 should be 1. There's also a minus sign in the second one, so R2 should be 3. Everybody good there? Those are your two x-intercepts, so I'm going to put them on my graph at positive 1 and positive 3. And then I'm going to use the formula to find H. So H is R1 plus R2 divided by 2. 1 plus 3 divided by 2, which is 2. Which makes sense that our vertex is going to be somewhere along x equals 2. It's halfway between the x-intercepts. To get the k, I substitute it into my factored form, replacing each x with 2. So we get k as negative 1 for a vertex of 2, negative 1. HK is always the vertex. So right there. And then our step number is a positive 1. So A equaling 1 means up 1, 3, and 5. and then we can join them. Arrows on the ends. And we have to put it in vertex form. So to do that, we write out our general vertex form, and then just substitute in A to K. You know, A is 1, so we can just leave it. X minus 2 squared minus 1. Okay, so check for common factors first. We know there's a leading negative, so we know we're going to be common factoring first. At least negative. Then I'm going to look at the coefficients. Does 2 go into all of them? Yes. So negative 2 is going to be my common factor and my stat number. Okay. And then I'm going to common factor each term. So mentally divide each of those 3 terms by negative 2. You know if you're common factoring 3 terms, there's going to be 3 terms in the bracket. Okay. So if you did that correctly, you should have got x squared plus 10x plus 24. If you factored that correctly. Okay, that's the common factor stuff. Now you count the terms inside the brackets. There's 3. There's just a 1 in front of here inside the bracket, so it's a simple trinomial next. So a simple trinomial, x at the start of each. And then you need the 2 numbers that multiply to positive 24 and add to positive 10. So we know they're both going to be positive. Some people are really good with times tables and they just know what they are. Other people make the organized list. 4 and 6, if I would add up to positive 10. So now you have it in intercept form. So at that point is when you should be able to say what your 2x intercepts are, once you've got it into intercept. Careful with the signs. Remember, to get a plus in the bracket, you would have had to have minus negative, so it should be negative 4 and negative 6 should be your intercepts. Okay. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's your 2 x intercepts. Then you can calculate h. So you get h to be negative 5. See if that makes sense. Yes, it's halfway between your x-intercepts. Then you calculate k by substituting into your intercept form, replacing each x with h. And then you work out each bracket, and 3 numbers multiplying together in that case. Okay. You get 2 for k. Yeah, you may. Yes, okay. got our vertex to be at -5 and 2 up here. Our step number is -2. So having an a equal to -2 means down 2, 6, and 10. So from your vertex, you go over 1, down 2, we land on our intercepts, which is good. Then over 1 and down 6. And we can't fit the 10 on. So we just draw it in. Arrows on the ends. And then do your vertex form. So that follows this general formula. So in our case, our a was -2, h was -5, so it would be x minus -5 squared. So we would change that to +5. And then k was +2. F. So we check for common factors first. Whenever there's a half, it's going to be a common factor. So it's my only common factor because there's not an x in all of them. So a half x squared divided by a half is x squared. The coefficients is what you're really worried about. So -2 divided by a half, you could use your calculator and do -2 divided by 0.5 if you want. Okay, so try it on your calculator to make sure you can get it. -2 divided by 0.5 should give you -4. So -4x, because there's an x here. And then to get the third term, you should be doing -6 divided by 0.5. Okay, so make sure you can get those. So when you divide by half, you're actually doubling. Okay, or you can remember that in your head as well. You divide by half, you're doubling. Because 2 halves go into 1. All right, so then you're looking inside, there's 3 terms. It's a simple trinomial. So it's going to factor to give me 2 brackets with an x at the start of each. And then I need 2 numbers that multiply to -12 and add to -4, which means the bigger one is going to have to be negative. So I could have 1 and -12, but that doesn't add up to -4. 2 and -6, that does. So now you've got an intercept form, which means you should be able to tell what R1 and R2 are. So R1 is -2, and R2 is 6. So -2 and +6. So then we're going to calculate h by adding our 2 x-intercepts together and dividing by 2. So I got h was +2, and I can see if it makes sense. Yes, it's halfway between the x-intercepts. Then you got to calculate k. So I go to my intercept form. replace each x with 2 in this case. You can use 0.5 on your calculator when you're calculating if you like. -8. So you should get your vertex to be 2 and -8. Right down here. And your step number is 1/2, which means up, 1/2, 1.5, 2.5, etc. Okay? So over 1.5. Let's see here. Over 1.5 on corners. Over 2.5. Over 1, 2, 3.5. You land on your intercepts. Always a good feeling. 1.5. That leaves it right to the top there. And you can down your problem. And then vertex form. Our A was 1/2. Our H was 2. And our K was -8.
I'm really sorry to interrupt this real quick.
Yeah.
But do you have anybody in here who has borrowed a Chromebook from the office or the library? Can I please collect them so we can get them all signed back? And your name is on it? Thank you very much. Your name's on it. Is there anyone else? Oh, one more. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, last example. I'll let you guys try this one. Pause for Daniel for a second. First step. Now you got some signs wrong. -5 divided by -0.5 is +10. And -8 divided by -0.5 is +16. Which means R1 should have been -2 and R2 -8. H is going to be halfway to 2. interesting one. At -5. K. K is going to be at 4.5. Right in the center there. K is -0.5. So we're going down 0.5, 1.5, 2.5. So you land right on the corners there for your first 0.5 down. 1.5 down. 2.5 down. Right on your intercepts. And then you run out of room. And your vertex form would be -0.5 x minus -5 squared plus 4.5. And then you would change that to plus. And then you'd be a gopher for 8.